This is Ed White, All-Pro Offensive Lineman in the NFL, and you're listening to The Grueling Truth.
Hey, welcome everybody to The Grueling Truth NFL Weekly Pick'em Show. We're doing a Super Bowl review this week, which everybody on the show picked the game wrong last week. Cooper, don't say nothing because you weren't on the show last week. So we'll count you as a
Hey, I
also.
sent my vote in, and you know who I voted for.
I think you picked Carolina like 10-3.
Please.
But, I'm your host, Mike Goodpasser. I want to welcome in my co-host, as always. Of course, we got Matt Andrews-Cabbage. How you doing tonight, Matt?
I'm doing very well, but on the other hand, it is kind of sad that the season is over, but it was quite a season.
Matt, let's face it, you're a 49er fan. The season was over after week 3. I'd like to welcome him, yes, former Pittsburgh Steeler, Jacksonville Jaguar, Pro Bowl offensive lineman, Leon Searcy.
Glad to be here, guys. I guess defense does win championships.
Sure does.
Yeah, it does. It killed them.
But, man, also we'll welcome in former Denver Bronco offensive lineman, Mark Cooper.
No, did you forget to say Super Bowl 50 world champion former Bronco?
I didn't see you in the game, but all right, go ahead, Mark. Go ahead and say it.
the only guy was right all year.
And since we're talking about the greatest, since Mark's obviously going to bring up the greatest defense of all time, we might as well have somebody on the show that played on what was probably the greatest defense of all time. Help me welcome in former Pittsburgh Steelers defensive lineman Gary Dunn.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here. I can't believe Mark. Did he just say Super Bowl championship? Have you seen his PR card he has for his real estate where he holds that ring up there on his finger? Well, see, that's what you get when you lose the game. The two I have, that's what you get when you win the game. So there's the difference.
Yeah, so I guess the only person we got here that experienced winning a Super Bowl as a player would be Gary Dunn. Is that correct, Mark?
That would be correct.
Absolutely.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. So we'll start off with
kudos. Got to give him his kudos.
Well, hey, you got to ask Mark. The greatest interception ever of John Elway was who?
I want to go ahead and throw this down, but I got to give you the play-by-play first. Okay. Gary Dunn intercepts the ball at the 13, and he's at the 13, and he's now at the 13 and a half, and now he's at the 12, and he's jiggled, wiggled, wobbled, almost fell down, and he's at the 12 and a half, and he's still putting on the moves. Now he's at the 12. Well, I could go on and on, but it'd be all night.
Yeah, wow. To make a long story short, Gary Dunn intercepted a pass from John Elway.
Intercepted the pass in the playoff game. Mark was over on the sideline. Mark, you were hurt, right?
I was.
Okay, yeah. Mark was hurt. Again, and so anyway, but I put on. You know what? You don't think about it. I haven't touched a football since Little League. I felt like I was back in the sandlot. All of a sudden, the ball was there. I was putting on more moves in a bowl of Jello, but I only went about 4 feet. And I came to the sideline. My head coach, Chuck Noll, goes, Gary, you had the whole open field to the other side. He goes, you could have gone 60, 70 yards. And I said, Chuck, Mile High Stadium, overweight, 34 years old, not a good idea to run 68 yards. And he just shakes his head and walks away.
That would have been 1984 when Pittsburgh went into Denver and upset Denver, wasn't it?
You know what? That's exactly right.
Ancient history.
That was actually a pretty good upset.
We lost to the Dolphins. That was the first year. Marino, Duper, and Clayton. Oh, man, they lit us up, and then they went out and got beat by the 49ers that year.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about this Super Bowl. We'll let Mark go first since, Mark finally got one right.
Finally got one right. Hey, all year long, have I not talked about this defense? Have I not? Okay,
yeah, but
they
you
got to
also
rank
call
right
it
up there. They got to rank right up there in the top 3 with statistics, et cetera. And, what's funny is a lot of people have been saying, it wasn't that great of a game. But if you like football and you like defense and you like people getting hit in the mouth, that was as good a defensive game I've seen in a long time. And, I tell you what, I was extremely disappointed in Cam Newton. And when I saw him fade away from that fumble, it told me everything I needed to know about him. And then his post-game ridiculousness just showed no character. And I'll tell you what, that kid could have been the face of the NFL. And I'm kind of, it's too bad for him. But, that lack of character is going to haunt him. And,
Leon,
what
was your take on that?
Oh, well, my take on it, he shouldn't have left the press conference. That was true. When you get into the MVP of the NFL, you've got to sit there. You got to take your medicine like a man. But here's the thing: a lot of people will criticize him about his demeanor, the hoodie, and walking in there. But I didn't have a problem with the fact that he had a problem with losing. When you lose a Super Bowl, I'm trying to figure out how do you want me to act? I mean, what kind of demeanor do you want me to have? I mean, what kind of answers? I mean, because they're going to throw every answer at you. You're going to relive the Super Bowl loss in these interviews, and I don't understand how they want him to react. I mean, they want him to be all magnanimous with all these questions and the way I've lost the Super Bowl. I don't want to be around. I don't want to answer questions. I know that, it's in your contract. You got to talk to the press. You got to ask questions about why you lost the game, what happened, and all that kind of stuff. But when you put in all that work throughout the year, that you lose a game, the way they lost the game, I mean, I didn't have a problem with him with the short questions. I mean, with the short answers. I didn't have a problem with him being pissed off. That's the way he was feeling emotionally after the game. It was a little immature for him to get up and leave. I mean, you can't do that. I mean, when you're the face of a franchise and you lose a game like that, you got to sit there and take your medicine like a man. You got to answer the questions and just man up to it. But him being upset, him being angry, him being a little pissed off, I didn't have a problem with that. I just had a problem with him up and leaving. I was just very immature about him.
Well, I agree with what you're saying. The only thing about it is, I mean, walk it off, like you say, that was the worst. You know what? I hate reporters after you lose a game. Not mentioning losing a game like the Super Bowl, like you say, Leon. You're just totally you're gone. You're not even there. You're so upset. You put everything into this game and you just lost it, but you still got to have a little bit of class. You can give short answers. You can act upset, but you hang in there and you take it, and then you move on. And that's where he shouldn't have walked away.
Yeah, but you get a guy like Russell Wilson last year, probably even a worse situation, throwing the game-ending interception of a very close game. He sat there for a half hour and answered every question. And if you're the face of a franchise, I mean, don't you think, Leon, that maybe you just need to man up and do it? You're getting paid a lot of money, which I know doesn't matter at that point.
Yeah, it doesn't matter at that point. But here's the thing. Russell Wilson's not Cam Newton. I mean, everybody, Russell Wilson is this pretty picture that everybody wants to paint. He's very positive. He has a great image. He doesn't say anything negative. Cam Newton's he's a little bit more of he's in a different culture. He's more in your face, celebrating. He's doing the Superman moves or whatever. And unfortunately, when you get guys like that, who as flamboyant as Cam is on the field, pointing after a first down or doing the Superman thing, and I've seen it at the Pop 1 level and the high school level, these kind of kids that celebrate all the time or whatever, and unfortunately, when they get in a situation where they get their ass kicked, they don't know how to respond to it. They become pouty, they become moody, they don't want to talk, and that's
poor character.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely. If you're going to win, if you're going to win big, you got to. I don't want to say you lose. You cordially lose, but I'm saying that you got to stick there. You got to take your medicine. You got to answer the questions. But I'm just telling you that I've played in the Super Bowl and I've lost, and those raw emotions that you exude on the field, and then you come off the field, and I'm telling you, you're playing the game over in your head after the game. You're asking yourself, what could I have done differently? I missed on this play. I missed on that play. Maybe something I could have done to be a turning point of us winning the game. And you're pissed off at the game. You're pissed off at yourself because you think you could have done more. And I'm sure Cam in that game, while he was sitting there in front of those reporters and them asking those questions, he's reliving that Super Bowl in his head, and he's pissed off because there was opportunities there that he didn't take advantage of, and he's mad, and he's upset, and he's a little pouty. It was immature for him to get up and lead the way he did. You just got to, if you're the MVP of the NFL, you've got to find a way to get there, answer the questions. I didn't have a problem the way he answered the questions. I mean, sometimes those reporters, they're poking and prying at you anyway. So, you give them as little as possible when you're losing. I've done it. I've been in games that I thought we, had opportunities we lost, and reporters ask you all these crazy questions, and I look, I don't really feel like answering questions right now. If you're gonna prolong this, then I'm gonna shorten my answers, and you just want to have to deal with it.
Well, you gotta realize too with Cam Newton. Look at their season. I mean, they lost one game. You talk about being positive and always up the whole season, and to turn around and, like you say, all of a sudden it's like a little bit of a spoiled kid where you go, gosh, all of a sudden things are not going well for us. Well, it was going great for those guys for a long time. So, that's probably part of it too.
Well, as they always say, a test of a man's character is not how he acts when he's winning. It's how he acts when he responds to losing. And, I mean, when you look at the way he acted, it was uncalled for. But everybody makes mistakes, but he's in his fifth year. Now, we transition a little bit. Matt, what was your opinion of the game? What do you think was the key play of the game or the key to the game, just outside of Denver's defense manhandling Carolina's offense?
Well, that's certainly true. The defense definitely manhandled the offense, but really the key part of the game has to be the Von Miller sack fumble that ended up being a 10-0 game. The one game they had adversity this year was the Atlanta game that they lost. Most every other game they were able to jump out in front like we talked about all year, and they just, kind of protect the lead and they're able to do all the things that they do great. And when Denver was able to get out to a 10-0 lead and just kind of ride the backs of the defense, it became more apparent that Carolina just is not really built to handle that kind of defense, that kind of adversity. They do have weapons. They've got a pretty good offensive line. They have a great defense themselves. Cam Newton's a great weapon, MVP of the league, no doubt. But the key play of the game has to be once they got up by double digits, it took a long time to get that down to a one-score game.
Well, see, the key play to me wasn't even that play. It was, the play before that when I thought it was an obvious catch, and they ruled it
that was a big play.
Pass. I mean, because if you take that play away, then maybe it's still a 3-0 game.
Yeah, but that's so early in the game. So many more things happen later in the game. I mean, early in the game like that, there's always other ways to combat that and come back from that.
Yeah, but Mark, the thing is this: you've got a team where the last 3 or 4 weeks when we did our Pick'em show, Matt and even Leon brought up the fact that Newton's a front runner. So I mean, maybe that just kind of killed all confidence he had right then too.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you guys something different, a little bit different. Last week, I think when I was on, when we were talking, the new rule changes for the defense. Everybody's saying there's not going to be any more defensive struggle games because of all the new rule changes. That was a defensive battle right there. So it was interesting.
Yeah, no doubt. I thought there were times where maybe both offenses just looked sloppy, but both these teams really do have good defenses. So it's probably a combination of the two. Peyton Manning didn't look super sharp by any stretch, but he also didn't throw the game away. Newton was under duress most of the game, and it's very, very difficult. It doesn't matter what quarterback you are. If you're under duress, it's very hard to get into a flow and very hard to get your rhythm and get things going.
Yeah, hey, Mark, go ahead, Leon.
Mark, I want to ask you a question. Just watching the game with Peyton Manning, I mean, he wasn't that well statistically. I mean, he didn't have a bunch of yards. It's almost like the game plan going into the game was Peyton, don't screw it up. We'll win.
Couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. And I'll tell you what disappointed me with that offense, and I'll tell you what, some people are already calling for Dennison's head and not enough play action. I mean, when you're up there, they've got 9 in the box, and you're just going ahead and try and force a run against, one of the best defenses in the league as well with Carolina. people were screaming bloody murder. I mean, there could have been a lot more play action, when it looked like we had to run and had to try and work the clock and, towards the end of the game and even later in the game, and that wasn't happening. What happened to play action? What happened to naked boot? What happened to, a counter tray or some counters that they really have not done a good job of offensively. So play calling is going to be interesting to see if any of that changes up this coming year.
Yeah, and you talk about play calling, I think the star of this game, and we talked about it before, Leon's talked about going up against the defenses. Mark, you've talked about it. Wade Phillips is one of the best defensive coordinators in NFL history.
Incredible.
And the defense he came up with was unreal, I thought.
So I did a little radio, we did a 2-hour radio show afterwards. We had Wade on, and no one else had him on. And Wade basically said, they mixed up a little spy early on. They were 65% predominantly man-to-man because their guys could cover, and they turned their guys loose, and they didn't do much spying later in the game. And they said to those guys, look, stay in your lanes. Let's try and cover him up, beat your guy. Let's go beat him up as much as we can. And that was kind of how the game plan turned out towards in that second half. And that was his comments in that interview, and I thought it was pretty interesting.
Well, and you brought up Denver's play calling, or I would bring up Carolina's play calling, because against Denver, who was going predominantly man, you saw almost no crossing routes run. I mean, they looked like they thought they were going against a cover 2 or a cover 3 defense all the time. There was no crossing routes. I mean, there was no rub routes, nothing underneath, no drag, anything. Anything you would normally do to combat a man defense, I never saw them even attempt to do, really.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. I think they got flustered on their side of the ball as well.
You know what is interesting, Coop, too? I was listening to everybody talking. It's true. They didn't have a lot of design runs for Cam to do, like a quarterback draws and everything. Like you were saying, Wade Phillips is saying they had him spying, and then they quit that because Carolina didn't run it. I'm surprised they didn't have Cam run more.
I was too, to be honest with you, and using his legs. But when he did run, they laid some wood on him too. So he they may have been a little worried about getting him hurt and needing him to play a little, get him through the stretch there. And something else I noticed, and I'm not a quarterback coach but I've seen quarterbacks coach. His footwork is pathetic, and he's all arm and upper body, and he gets away with it because he's such a great athlete. You almost wonder how
Leon
good
needs to respond to that, because Leon made fun of me when I told him that a couple of days ago.
No, honestly, yeah. Only because I've seen my kid coached by Ryan Clement was working with my kid for a while. And I went to went to those workouts, and I watched the feet and what they were doing with them and the hips and bringing the shoulder through and everything else. And I was shocked. I really was. I was like, wow, this is really interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, you watch Cam because he's such a phenomenal athlete. He does it the way not being as sound as he should be technical wise, especially at the quarterback position, because he's so strong upper bodily, and he has such a prolific. I ain't gonna say prolific, but he has such a strong arm, and you could tell that in the game when Denver was putting that heat on him, a lot of times his feet would shuffle a little bit. I told Mike last week about it. That the Broncos defense had a lot to do with that, the fact that he was shuffling his feet or not. But it was times in the pocket when he didn't get pressure that you could see that his foot wasn't fundamentally sound as it should be. But when you got those ends coming off the corner, I mean, then you got guys pushing up the middle. I saw him shuffle a little bit. I saw his technique flaws. I saw him trying to strong arm a lot of the balls into windows that weren't even there. So, I mean, that's something that he's definitely got to work on in the offseason, because he could have put himself some of those balls, those errant throws, those overthrows that he had in the game had a lot to do with the fact that he was just trying to strong arm the ball instead of being sound technique-wise and getting it there. So, I mean, you got to remember, he's only his fifth year in the league. I mean, he's still got a ways to go. He got a ways to grow. But for the most part, I think the Denver Broncos defense had a lot to do with the fact that he just was unsettled. Even Tom Brady, in that game, in the AFC Championship game, the Broncos away, they were bringing that Tom. It was times where Tom, had to move around or what. But Tom's a lot more sound fundamentally than Cam is. But Cam has got to learn in those situations when you're under duress that you've got to rely on your technique to get it done. And he tried to strong arm too many balls and most of them were open throws or missed throws.
I mean, that defense hit Brady.
The problem with that, Leon, is this. He's been playing quarterback probably since he was 8 years old. He has basically got away. We talked about it before with offensive linemen, how if you're in high school and you're a 6'5", 320-pound offensive lineman, nobody really worries about teaching a technique because nobody's getting around you anyways. And the problem is when you're a quarterback and your footwork's been bad for the last 15 years, chances are with the muscle memory already ingrained, it's almost impossible to fix it. I mean, Tim Tebow tried to fix his throwing motion, but he'd been doing it for so long that you revert back when you get pressure again to what you always did.
Well, you say you start having problems, and then you got to try to do something. So far, he hasn't needed, like you say, the great technique because he just has been kicking butt. It's like when I was at the I was playing for the Steelers. I went back to the University of Miami, and Butch Davis was the defensive line coach. He said, "Gary, come on in the meeting room here. I want you to watch some of our defensive line." So that's a Heb Warren, Sapp there, and these guys. And I'm watching there. They're running around blocks. Their techniques were bad. I said, "Coach," I said, "they're never gonna. You can't play that way." He said, "Watch the play." The next thing you know, they run the ball carrier down from behind. You know, they're getting 4-yard losses and stuff. And he says, "I'd say let that dog eat." And I go, "Well, you're right. Let it eat." So as long as they're doing well.
Yeah.
Now, Coop, I'll let you respond to this because you told us earlier in the year that this was the greatest defense you've ever saw. Do you still think it's the greatest defense you've ever seen?
I think it ranks up there in probably the top 3 or 4 based on early in the season they were killing people and then they had a lot of injuries. And DBs went down and DeWare was out and Vaughn was tweaked and et cetera. But as the end of the season came, you know, and they healed everybody up and got guys back on the field. And I really think, like I say, I think they're in the top 3 or 4. You know, if you run down statistically, you know, they'll rank right up there with some of them. But, you know, I think you have to do that year in and year out like Pittsburgh did, Chicago did, and you know, San Francisco did, I think, before they're going to get that kind of recognition.
Yeah. What's your opinion, Gary?
No, I think that they got a great defense, and I think what Mark said was absolutely right. Give them a little time before they. But obviously this year, you know, I was just extremely impressed. Yeah, I mean that's a great defense. We'll see down the road, but you know, definitely this year they were awesome.
All right, Matt.
Oh, no question. I mean, the front seven's great. The secondary is great. They don't really have a weakness, and that really goes back to what you were saying about how, you know, the lack of crossing routes. It just seemed like Carolina just wasn't able to do some of the things that you need to do against this type of a defense, like, you know, shorter routes. Take what the defense gives you. Try to frustrate them with 5- and 6-yard gains, and you know, it's a very difficult defense to move the ball on. And if they keep everything together, they're just going to be great for a while.
All right, Leon?
Yeah, you got to put them in the top 5. I mean, they totally dismantled. You got to remember, this team they only lost 1 game in like a year and a half. I mean, the Carolina Panthers were on the road. They were, you know, right up there with Arizona Cardinals as one of the highest scoring offenses in the NFL, and they just totally dismantled them. I mean, they play press coverage. They get pressure on the quarterback now. Only game Super Bowl that I saw where there was just ass kicking was Seattle beat Denver, and then Tampa Bay I got to throw Tampa Bay up there. I got to throw the Ravens up there. I mean, but this Bears. Team, 85 Bears, of course. I mean, of course I got to throw the Steelers in there. I mean, you've got those are probably one of the top performing defenses in Super Bowl history, but they got everything on lock. I mean, I knew going into the game. Here's the thing that I know. I played in the Super Bowl where there's crowd. First of all, the offensive line is at a disadvantage because it is a neutral site, but you can't hear because both sides are screaming. So if you get the offense in a position where they're having to pass the ball and they don't have an effective run game, then the advantage goes to the defense. And I just knew going into this game that Carolina got behind and had to catch up. I didn't think that anybody could block DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller. I just didn't think. The whole idea was to push the middle of the pocket, have those ends come off the corner, and that's what they did. And then Wade Phillips did an outstanding job. I knew it because I played against him when he was with Buffalo, when he had Bruce Smith and Bryce Pop. I mean, he always put an effective game plan against us when I was in Jacksonville. So I knew he was going to be rock solid in the game. But yeah, that defense it's got to rank among one of the best in the Super Bowl era because of the way they just dismantled the Panthers. Receivers couldn't catch balls. They couldn't get off their routes. They had everything on lock. It was just an outstanding performance.
Yeah, and I think you could throw in the 1989 and the 84 49ers defenses too.
Yeah, they were special.
Because the 89 49ers took apart a really good Denver offense, as good as anybody's ever taken one apart before, I think, in a Super Bowl. My question to Mark, you got Von Miller and Brock Osweiler. Which one do you protect in free agency?
Well, I think what they're going to do is franchise Vaughn, and they'll pay Osweiler. So they may not have to write the biggest check yet to Vaughn, but they'll keep him, and then he'll get his payday. They'll keep Brock. Be interesting to see how how that works out. But you got some young kids, Shane Ray and Barrett, coming up right behind them that are playing pretty good football too. So that was helpful during the year, being able to alternate guys and keep those older guys fresh. So it's going to be an interesting offseason, and finding out where the money's going to be and the cap's going to end up.
Leon, what do you think the Broncos' chances are to repeat?
I think they're one of the maybe top 2 or 3 teams in the AFC. I think if you get a healthy Pittsburgh Steelers team with Le'Veon Bell coming back, Big Ben, little bumps and bruises coming back, I think the Steelers will be strong. I think the Bengals are going to be strong. I think it's going to be hard if everything's square, which it won't be because it's the NFL, because there's injuries throughout the season. If everything's square, only teams they have to worry about the Steelers, the Bengals, and the Patriots. I mean, those are the teams that could prevent the Broncos from repeating again or making it to the Super Bowl. Those, I think, are the 3 strongest teams in the AFC that could keep the Broncos out of the Super Bowl.
What do you think of that, Mark?
I couldn't agree more. I totally agree with that. It'll be and like you said earlier in the year, both of you guys said if you guys don't beat each other to death during the season and in the playoffs, one of you guys may get in it, Bengals or Steelers.
Listen, Mike, almost every Bengal and Steeler major injury this year was done against each other.
Exactly. Look, Mike, we're gonna file a petition. We need to get the Steelers and the Bengals out the same division. We need to move them away.
I think what we need to put one in the NFC and one in the AFC, and maybe they can have a massive Super Bowl matchup.
because every game we play against y'all, we kill each other. There's at least 4 to 5 injuries in those games when we play against y'all, and we played y'all 3 times this year. So I mean, if we don't kill each other, I mean, we've got an opportunity. We had the Bengals and the Steelers just had a good enough opportunity to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl as any other team in the AFC.
Now, the big question to me, Matt, I'll let you talk about this, is where does Carolina go from here? You there, Matt?
Yeah, didn't hear you said I just heard the big question to me was, and then I didn't hear anything.
Where does Carolina go from here?
Well, they really do still have a young team. They don't really have a lot of guys that are aging on their way out the door. So really, to me, it's just a matter of, doing what Luke Kuechly said at the end of the game, using this experience to refuel them for next year. They still got, I don't know what their free agent situation is right now. I don't know if they've got anybody that's on the way out, but, I believe Greg Olson's still locked up. The offensive line is locked up. I know that Josh Norman could potentially leave, but most everybody else, it sounds like they're going to be back. And as bad as the NFC is, there's no reason to think that the Panthers can't seriously compete for the NFC Championship next year. I think it's just a matter of, doing what, teams like the Spurs have done. When they lose the NBA Finals, they just go out and they just try to get better and just get right back to the dance. The Broncos were pretty down and out 2 years ago when they lost a really, really tough game to Seattle. That's a lot to lose by. That's pretty deflating, but they didn't give up. They just went out, signed everybody they could, and just try to get back. And that's all Carolina can really do right now.
Gary, I'm going to ask you the same question. I know that I know you've never lost a Super Bowl, so it's probably hard for you to understand it, but where do you think Carolina goes from here? How do you think this loss affects them?
I think they're just going to keep going up. I mean, it's a young team. They had a great season, a very disappointing end of their season. So I just see nothing but good things from the Panthers. And, you know, we were talking about the Broncos. Let me tell you something. To repeat, after you win the Super Bowl, to repeat is so hard because everybody you play against is so pumped up to play you. And everybody says, well, you got to go out there and be that pumped up. Well, you should, but that's not really the way it is all the time. I remember after we won Super Bowl 13, we played the Falcons in a preseason game in Atlanta, and they beat us. The fans ran on the field. People threw helmets. I mean, it was like a ticker tape parade. We're looking around going, it's freaking preseason. Yeah, I mean, that's when you knew right there. You said, hey, man, you know what? We lost like our first four preseason games that year.
Now, Gary, real quick, you told us a story when we did an interview with us last week about an incident with Mark Cooper at Three Rivers Stadium. Did you want to go ahead and rehash that for Mark?
Oh man, that's the cry they heard. I bet you when Leon got up there to Pittsburgh, they were still talking about the cry heard all over Pittsburgh right there. Hey, Mark Cooper decided, Leon, I'm right now. I mean, you're an offensive lineman, and you guys are, you guys are a little different, to be honest with you. But Mark is way different. I'm 30 yards behind the play, and when I played, I knew every camera angle. If I'm out of the close camera angle, I'm in the wide angle. All I have to do is chop my arms and take a break. Well, so I'm back there 30 yards taking my break, and I look over, and here comes Coop. He had one of them bike helmets on there. They blow it up, and it was like sitting on top of his head like about 4 feet. He looked like a cone head. And Coop to get running, he's got to get that lean. You know, his legs ain't very big, and that big old head, so he starts leaning. And I look over at him, and he's snorting and coming at me, and I go, what's he going to do? He's going to throw on me. And he threw on me. I balled up like a cannonball and came down and landed on his shoulder, and you should have heard the screams. And he started screaming, and I mean, we had timeout. There was silence in the stadium, and all that you could do was hear. You heard it all the way out in the Three Rivers, up in the Steel Building, Mount Washington. It may even gone over to Cincinnati. It was unbelievable. And they took the Steeler cart, and they carted Mark off. And there he went. We put his helmet on his chest. And the next week he said he wasn't hurt. I didn't hurt him, but he happened to not play. He didn't play for like 3 weeks. So, I'm sorry, Mark.
Now I'll tell the truth.
Yeah, there we go.
His version is so much better. His version is so much better. I'll tell you what. And hey, Leon, you know how the defensive linemen cry like little bitches, right?
Oh, I've heard the worst of them. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah. Well, I won't go into how much he cried when I hit him, but we'll leave that alone for another day.
Wait. What do we cry like bitches? What about you guys? 2 330-pound linemen block a 260-pound lineman, and then they go back to the huddle and high five, and they'll even like bend over and get a little butt grab going on. I go, what in the world is that?
We don't do no butt grabbing now.
I saw some butt. Well, Coop, I'm sorry, Leon, not you.
Leon.
That was a thing in the 80s. Leon.
Gary hasn't seen 260 since he was born. Okay, he was all a 360 when he played, and they had him on the schedule at like 320 or something. He was always 360 plus.
Yeah, but I look at.
Hey Gary, I got to ask you something. Now, I always wanted the defensive lineman perspective on this. All right. Okay. It's a 2-minute drill, and we've got the ball, and the offensive line is driving down the field. And the whole emphasis of the 2 minutes drill to keep what's the deal with the tap out? I don't want to. Why do the defensive linemen Now, offensive linemen, we don't do that. You know, if we got to go 10, 15, 20 plays and drive and score, we're in there 10, 15, 20 plays to drive and score. What's the deal with the defensive lineman tapping out? What's that whole tap? The hand on the helmet to tap out to get a break.
No? What do you mean, Leon? Seriously. What do you guys?
I'm trying to figure it out. That's all good.
Let me give you a replay of the offensive lineman's 2-minute drill. Line up, cut somebody's legs, hold them, leg whip them, stand up and laugh and walk 3 feet back to the line of scrimmage.
No. Listen now. If we're passing the ball, we've got to pass protect. We've got to block. But D linemen, they do 2 plays. They tap out. They rotate. The other guy comes in. Then he taps out. And another guy comes in.
All fresh.
But you know what? Seriously, I mean, we're kidding around, but I'll tell you what. We've always said this. An offensive lineman should not get all you're doing is giving your pass block, and you give up 3-4 yards. You're just standing there. That defensive lineman, go push against a goalpost for about 10 seconds and see how tired you get. I mean, that's what happens. But you guys are the freaking politicians, man. You guys are, hey, what are you doing on my back? You talk to offensive line, and they go, I'm sorry, Gary, did I roll up your legs? I'm really sorry. And you come back, defensive line are not very smart, so they come back there and go, you know what, that Leon's a nice guy.
Well, hey, you said that's the first true thing you said all night. Defensive linemen are very smart guys.
We don't need to know too many plays. You know, in nose tackle, I knew 2 plays. You know, 1 gap, 2 gap. That was it. That's all.
So, Coop, you're in Denver right now. What's it like in Denver?
Denver's been on fire all day long. The parade started. They had light rail full. The parking was full. They were charging $50, $60 a spot. It went on all day. They had a concert down there. They had 2 different bands. They said there's 1 million people. I don't know how you count that many people, but if you look at anything on Facebook, I mean, you can't. It's covered up in orange. It was a big day for a lot of folks that can't afford a ticket, so they were able to get down there. And I think that's great for the fans because that game's pretty expensive to go to, and the folks that can't afford it can run down there and stand in line and watch the parade and see all their, superstars and wave at them and then go listen to some music and, hear everybody talk.
I saw the pictures. It looked at least 1 million people. It was ridiculous how many people were filling up the streets.
Yeah.
Well, Gary, what was it like in Pittsburgh when y'all won it? Did you get to drink some Steel City beer or Iron City beer?
Iron City, yeah. Well, they saved me with that. My rookie year, they came out with Iron City Light because that regular Iron City was terrible. So we
to that.
Did you have some of that up there, Leon?
Oh, yeah, it's terrible. I tried to support the brand, but I couldn't finish half a bottle.
Yeah. You know where Carnegie is in south of Pittsburgh. I didn't know a soul. I walk in this bar and it's all steel workers. I don't know anybody, and they said, "What do you have?" Iron City, and I go, "I'm just trying to get along." I said, "Sure." Then they put a shot glass next to it, and he said, "What do you have in there?" And I go, "No, I just want a beer." "What do you have in the shot glass?" He got kind of, a little bit hot, and I said, "What do they have?" "Whiskey." I go, "Put whiskey in there." So I drank the beer, and I said, "Why do you guys got to drink whiskey after?" I drank that beer, and, man, I chugged that whiskey right after. That was terrible. Iron City, something, man. But Pittsburgh went crazy. Pittsburgh had a big parade. It was, Pittsburgh, as Leon could tell you, I mean, it's such a sports town. I mean, when that team wins in Pittsburgh, everybody is having a great day. I mean, it's got such fan support, and it's just a great place to play football. I don't know what Leon thought when he was there, but when I was there, I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, it was. I absolutely loved it. I mean, the whole atmosphere reminded me when I played. I played at Miami during those championship years. The city loves its team. I mean, they would fist fight you if you say something bad about the team. And Pittsburgh was the same way. I mean, I would go down that one strip right in front of Three River Stadium, and the fans, if they recognize you, they could be tailgating or drinking beer or getting drunk or whatever. If they recognize you in the car, I mean, they would run to your car, terrible towel, wish you luck, and everything. But the one I could never forget the one time when we played in the AFC Championship game against the San Diego Chargers and we lost the game. And me and my wife at the time, we went to this restaurant after the game, and this old lady, I don't know how, she might have been like 80 years old. She came to my table, pulled up a chair, and she literally cried at my table because we lost that game. And I felt bad. I mean, I felt bad because she recognized me. She told me she was a Steeler fan. She's, her whole family grew up Steeler fans. She said she had sons that worked in the steel mills, and she just loved everything Pittsburgh. And I just felt this overwhelming disappointment that I let the city down when we lost that championship game. And I told myself I never wanted to experience that again because the fan base in Pittsburgh loves their Steelers. They absolutely love their Steelers.
Well, absolutely. Well, I remember the Super Bowl against the Cowboys. Who's the quarterback? Neil O'Donnell?
Yeah, Neil O'Donnell.
He threw those 2 passes. That was it for the game. Those 2 bad passes, wasn't it? I'll never forget that. Yeah,
2 interceptions cost us. Yeah, 2 interceptions cost us the game.
That was it. Yep. That's terrible. Those freaking quarterbacks.
I know. But I do remember this.
I'm sorry.
No, I do remember this, though. After we lost that Super Bowl to the Cowboys in the locker room, I remember being in the locker room, and it was me, it was Greg Lloyd, and Neil O'Donnell was getting dressed on his way out the locker room, and Greg Lloyd told Neil O'Donnell, "Don't let me catch you in the streets."
Wow.
So,
man,
I remember that specifically as well.
Well, you know what you missed, Leon, which I think they stopped, that we used to have in our locker room. You guys had the new fancy locker rooms, I think, but we had a sauna, and it was a tradition. We turned the sauna off, and after the game, we would come in, win, lose, and they would ice down like 20 cases of beer in the sauna. And, but like I say, the sauna's not on it. It was the best therapy because we'd be sitting in here, Jack Lambert, Mike Webster, Franco, and Bradshaw, and nobody be talking. Everybody's heads down. Just like you talked about Cam Newton. Well, we lost the game. And all of a sudden, after about the 5th beer, Lambert would poke his head up and say, "Hey, Brad, what kind of throw was that on that 3rd and 14? I know a little girl could throw better than that." And then next thing Brad's going, "Hey, Jack, what about that tackle over there?" And it was like therapy. Everybody started working their way back going, "Okay, next week. We got it next week." It was awesome, and I know they stopped that, but that was a lot of fun.
All right. Hey, real quick, we got to go to a commercial break, so check out this word from Gridiron Mo. We'll be right back.
This is former All-Pro Leon Searcy. I've got a new interactive app called Gridiron Mo, where you get to call the plays, offense or defense, and a live NFL game. You get to interact with other fans, pick the play, pick the call. That's Gridiron Mo.
All right, we're back on the NFL Pick'em Show, Super Bowl review with Matt Andruscavage, former Pittsburgh Steeler Leon Searcy, former Pittsburgh Steeler Gary Dunn, and Mark Cooper, former Denver Broncos Super Bowl 50 world champion. That better, Coop?
Yeah, baby.
All right. So, Matt?
I had a question for all 3 of you guys. You guys all played in the Super Bowl. Obviously the best part of the Super Bowl would be winning the game, but besides the result of the game, what was each of your favorite part about being in the Super Bowl?
You know what? I think actually I was watching on TV recently. I think the game against the Super Bowl 14, the Steelers played the Rams in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl, and they had 104,000. And I remember running out when they introduced the line, and they run you out there. And I remember just looking up at all those people, and I was like, that really got my attention. That was definitely pretty cool.
All right, Leon?
Yeah, mine was the same thing. You got to remember, I mean, I was a little kid that used to sit in front of the TV when the Super Bowl was on. I just remember being in that tunnel, and, you know, they introduced the defense, of course, and the defense ran out there, and the rest of us ran out as a team, and I just remember running out on that field and saying, I'm in a freaking Super Bowl. I mean, and I you know, I won 3 national titles at Miami, and that was all great. And that was absolutely a great experience. But running out of that tunnel with all those flashing cameras and the jets going by and seeing the Pittsburgh versus the Cowboys in the Super Bowl was just an experience in itself. And then I was able to share it with my family. So, I mean, that was just an awesome feeling, just being able to run out on that field and know that I was playing in a Super Bowl.
All right, Coop.
Yeah, I have to agree. It's kind of funny. We all have the same memory of running out on the field. Again, mine was at the Rose Bowl too, with 100,000+ people. And but I do remember one thing that pissed me off is we were playing the Giants, and they kept playing Frank Sinatra's New York, New York song. It just pissed off our whole team. And but being able to share that with our family, you know. Because it was, you know, my parents followed me ever since I was, you know, picked up a basketball and a football and everything else over the years, and they weren't able to go to a lot of my games because I had my mom was a nurse, my dad was a cop, so they were always swing shift or night shift or et cetera, so they didn't get to see a lot of games. But that was you know, that was a great feeling, being able to share that with my family.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. We're getting close to our hour being up. So, Gary, as always, it was great having you on. You got any final words for Coop or the people listening?
You know what? It's great being with these guys. You know, these are all the Steeler days, the Bronco days. You bet. You know what? We're all Canes. That's the main thing. It's all about the youth. And I tell you what, you go down to Miami and have the Hurricane guys, the younger guys, the older guys get together, and it's just a great group of guys. So it's great to be on the radio with you guys. And all I can say is go Canes.
All right, Leon?
Yes, it's all about the youth. But it's great being on. I hate the football season is over. Only 207 days to kick off.
There you go.
You know, I'm looking forward to next season. I really am. I think that the AFC is as strong as it's ever been. I think you've got you've got at least 4 bona fide contenders with the Broncos, the Steelers, and the Bengals. I think the NFC is a one-trick pony. I think it's going to be Carolina again. I don't see anybody else coming out of there unless, you know, Cardinals. They seem to fold under pressure. Green Bay, if they don't have Aaron Rodgers clicking, they can't score. But yeah, I'm kind of sad the season's over now. I got to watch freaking hockey and basketball and all that other crap, and golf. But I love so. But
golf, Leon?
Yeah, freaking golf. Yeah, freaking golf. Yeah, that's my life now. So.
Hey, Coop. Coop. Tell him how you launched Howie Long's career. We'll save that for another time.
Yeah, well, hey, it was a great season. The Broncos definitely had the best team. You know, at the Super Bowl, that rock-solid defense that got it done. And I've always been a stickler on defense don't win championships, points win championships, but I can't argue with that anymore. Over the last freaking 12 Super Bowls, the team with the best defense is 10-2. So I guess defense does win championships.
All right, Matt.
Well, I'd just like to say thanks to all 3 of you guys. You know, it's an honor to talk to former players. Mike and I really appreciate you guys being on with us. And like Leon said, you know, I'm definitely sad the season's over. But, you know, it's a lot of looking forward to next year, and definitely looking forward to more pick'em shows. I'm sure we'll be able to hopefully do something a little bit more the course of the year. But this has been a lot of fun, and we hope you guys will all be on with us a lot more.
Yeah, and before we get to Coop, I would like to bring up the fact that me and Matt tied for first place this year, which means, Leon, you were dead last.
First time in my life I wasn't a winner. So
get used to it, because next year I'm going to repeat. Matt will have to come in second. But
all
Coop,
right.
we're going to give you the final word out of everybody, since your team did win the Super Bowl.
Just a great win. So much fun to watch. Such a great opportunity for the Broncos of City, and it was and for Pat Bowlen, to be perfectly honest with you, he's not doing well. So he's been a great owner for this city and this team. So it was Elway, you heard him say this one's for Pat, and that was very appropriate. So, hey, looking forward to next season. You guys should get down to the University of Miami Hall of Fame Dolphin Tournament this summer and come fish with us and hang out with us down there, and we can have a couple cocktails and get ready for the next season, because that's the end of June. So it's all about the U, and come say hey to Mark Rick down there, and let's kind of have a giggle down in the Keys this summer.
Sounds good. I want to remind everybody to go out check out the Grueling Truth Facebook page. Also, check us out on Twitter at Grueling Truth. Tomorrow night, my guest, me and Matt's guest, I'm not sure if Matt can do the show yet, but we're going to have former Buffalo Bills, Green Bay Packers. Okay. We will have Bryce Paup, who I know that Leon knows very well.
Mm-hmm.
Since Leon always said he had trouble with it. And that's another one we can ask about Wade Phillips, because he basically transformed Bryce Paup's career by putting him up on the line and letting him just go after the quarterback all the time. Looks like we'll have former 49er and Saint Toy Cook on Thursday night. And then next Monday, Tony Hunter from the L.A. Rams. Next Wednesday night, former Miami Dolphin Kerry Glenn. And then after that, we got J.J. Burdan in a couple of weeks. So make sure you check out the Grueling Truth Facebook page. We'll have a website launched by Saturday night, which will give you more info on that. But once again, I want to thank Gary Dunn, Mark Cooper, Matt Andrew Scavage, Leon Searcy for coming on the show. We definitely got to do this again next year, guys. We need to maybe see if Coop wants to be a permanent mainstay guest here.
You bet.
And Gary also, if he wants to.
All right, man. Sounds good.
Because that way, when Coop gets a little too big for his britches, we always got Gary to tell that story about him screaming at Three Rivers Stadium.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks. It was a lot of fun.
So, once again, for Gary Cooper, or Gary Cooper, I called you Gary Cooper.
Gary Cooper. Wow.
So there you go. All right, brother.
For Gary Dunn, Mark Cooper, Leon Searcy, Matt Andrew Scavage, I'm Mike Goodpasser. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.